Welcome, everyone. Today, you have joined us at How Women Inspire for a really fantastic conversation we're going to have with Ivoree Jordan and Myshell Gresham.
Thank you for having us.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you,
so glad
Julie.
you guys are both here. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on these brilliant women, and then we're going to get into a fun conversation. Ivoree became the first Black female business insurance executive at her company, Newfront, to become a co-founder and principal, be the lead insurance broker on publicly traded organizations, and establish a multi-million-dollar revenue client base. Sounds like you're running the whole company to me. In January 2020, Ivoree testified before Congress as a subject matter expert on insurance matters to help underserved nonprofit organizations. Thank you very much for that. Ivoree was recently named one of the top 25 agents of 2021 by the Insurance Journal, one of only 4 women and the only Black professional honored on that list. And she was also awarded the 2022 Woman of the Year by her firm for her commitment to clients, colleagues in the community. As an executive in a $1 trillion industry, Ivoree has used the skills that she has gained over 20 years to begin her own journey as an entrepreneur. She is the co-founder of We Have Range, which is an organization impacting professionals early on to shorten their pathway to unimaginable success. Lean in. This is very exciting. And I have to tell you, I have some young professionals that I birthed, and I'm very excited for them to get a chance to listen to this. So the two of us are joined by Myshell, who is the SVP of Partnership Engagement at the Ascot Group. As she is also an award-winning insurance industry expert, she has consistently demonstrated her capacity to drive partnerships growth, portfolio management through her 20-plus year career. And she has this visionary approach focusing on recognizing the potential and pushing boundaries and empowering others to seize growth opportunities that they once thought were unattainable. She is a fierce advocate for developing her community through her nonprofit board service. Through her many leadership roles, she's found the love of developing others. There's a theme here, ladies, which led her to study coaching at the Neuro Leadership Institute. And she is now the co-founder of We Have Range. This is a development coaching, consulting, and media firm. How exciting. I am so honored to have an opportunity to speak with both of you. You have both come from somewhat similar backgrounds, but I think that there's a lot of complementary work here. And I love your commitment to the nonprofit world. So thank you both for that. Let's start with something fun. We love to sort of gather great walk-on songs or the song that you listen to on a good day or a tough day. Myshell, would you kick us off with saying, what is that song that you need by your side?
So great question. And thank you again for having Ivoree and I. I love talking about anything developing people and what we're doing. My walk-on song, I actually have 2 songs. So it depends on the mood. When I'm feeling really great and it's, want to get fiery and just excited about something, it is Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody. And yes, absolutely. Like that song is for everybody. Yes. I've seen men, women, everybody, kids, everybody. You just get in. My second song is Draw Me Close, Thy Will Be Done by Marvin Winans. It is a gospel song. It's a song that I'm from Bible Belt South, and I grew up very religious. I'm not religious now, I'm very spiritual, but that song just gives me life. It perks up my soul when I need just encouragement. It's a very encouraging song. And so for me, that's the song I put on when I need encouragement, when I need to remember that I live in deep gratitude every day. That's the song.
Oh my goodness, isn't that beautiful? I hope everyone listening here has that song by their side. And I think just living in gratitude, no wonder why you're doing such big things. That is that celebration of the gift of being here. I think the older we get, the more it's like, you know what, I got enough. And it's just good to be able to be a witness to it all. Ivoree, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, the song, and I had a different song for a long time, but when I did get that recognition last year to be Woman of the Year, which was voted by my female constituents, and our firm is a little over 1,000 people, and it was and about 600 women. in our firm. And the song that they came up was Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys. So that's been a song that's really resonated with me. And I think it doesn't just represent when you're trailblazing in the good days. As women, we have to show up and put our capes on, our superwoman capes on, and be on fire, no matter how we're feeling or what our various responsibilities are. And so I just love the framing that it gives to have that passion in spite of. So I love that song.
Well, and I think anytime you're having a bad day or a down day, listening to that song just is like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go get it. Like it just puts a memory somehow in your bones, right? Well, the two of you are on fire. I am so excited about what you're building for all women, for our daughters. Can you talk a little bit more about what is the genesis? How did you even begin to map out We Have Range? Where did that come from?
I'm glad you asked that, Julie. We probably should tell you what We Have Range is
Yeah, give me
in
the
total, and then I'll let Ivoree start on how we came together. So We Have Range is a multifaceted firm. We Have Range. It has a real meaning behind it that combines coaching, business consulting, and emerging media podcasting. That's what we're calling emerging media. And our vision is to empower both businesses and individuals to surpass their limitations, tap into the untapped potential, which is the range that we possess. And then additionally, we are passionate about amplifying the voices of dynamic individuals who are making innovative contributions to our community. So that's where we, at some point, hope to develop a very dynamic podcast that will be just us, authentically who we are, bringing really dynamic people to talk about what they're doing. Because there's always a podcast with some celebrity and talking about what they're doing. For some reason, celebrity has equated greatness, but there's everyday people doing really amazing things, and we want to make sure that they get amplified as well.
Yeah, I got chills when you were just describing that. And I have to tell you, for me, especially, I was talking to a guy this morning and I felt othered. It would just felt weird because in this industry of venture capital, I'm one of the others as a woman, right? And it's like, I'm not one dimensional. I'm not a one trick pony. I have range and I can go from here all the way over to here and then some. Is that kind of how you were thinking? Is it, to me, it feels like almost like claiming and political a little bit. Does that feel like that resonates what you were?
Absolutely. And I'll chime in sort of how it came together is Myshell and I, we've known each other for years now, of course, in the similar industry of being in business insurance, but more than anything, we've been exposed to lots of executive women, lots of early career people, and her and I have helped each other through some very challenging times. Of course, lots of great wins and opportunities. But really, the difference between those who succeed sooner and
Yeah.
oftentimes those who succeed or don't is what kind of support, what kind of foundation, what kind of mentors do you have along the way that could shorten the cycle, that could help you overcome obstacles to your success. And her and I were just talking like what's led to our success. And we were saying, yes, we're women and also obviously Black women of color. And we talk about those differentiating factors and what makes us uniquely us. And where would we be if we didn't have folks like ourselves, each other, even? Yeah. So, case in point, we just wanted to sort of be like, you know what, Myshell, we have so much to offer. We have so many experiences. We are multifaceted. We can be on many stage, whether it's a congressional stage or in a one-on-one meeting with someone in the
Winning
C-suite.
the top awards. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like there's so much we can do, and why not us? And I like to say a couple of terms. If you can see her, you can be her, number one. And especially when we talk about some of the trailblazings we've done in our own respective careers. And then women, we gave birth to the world. What can't we accomplish and what can't we do?
As I'm hearing what you're saying, my own lens of be unabashedly visible and say yes, make connections, show up for her, reinforce her voice, like all of that, how women lead credo feels like it's so, that's exactly what you're doing for women. So my daughter, she's 31 years old. And so many women like her, you're in your tech career ladder. There are times where it's like, oh, maybe I have the wrong, I got a different boss and I'm feeling a little lost and unseen or something. So if she comes to you, what does she do with We Have Range? How does she interact with you? How does she find you and how does she sign up? And what does she get?
Great question. So Ivoree gave a very PC answer to the name of how it came up. But I have to tell you, one day I was
Please do.
literally, I mean, she's great. I mean, we're so similar, but
Got
we're
her pearls on. She's
I
got the
know.
pearls
She has
on
her
and you have the
pearls
big
on.
earrings.
And here I am. I read your whole thing. Just come as you are. We're gonna drop all of the pump insert. And this is Ivoree though. And I love this because I am 14 years older than you or 15,
Who's
somewhere around in
counting?
there.
You look the same, honey.
And but what's so crazy is that we are so similar. One day I was honestly griping about dating and talking about how we have such a range. I can golf today, I can talk politics, I can listen to trap rap music tomorrow, and I can do all of those things and still be a dynamic business person. And we originally said she has range. Went back to the drawing board. I was like, that's very limiting because we can help everybody. While we want to focus on women and elevate women, and then we decided on changing it to We Have Range. Because when you coach people, you're coaching them to tap into themselves, right? Helping them discover their potential. And so the way that your daughter, going back to your original question, is the way that your daughter will find us is either our large group sales coaching that we want to develop for young people in like a 3-day workshop, 2 hours a day, to really give them some tools to be successful at business development, if that's what they want to do, or just in general, tackling the business world. If there's then that individual that wants that individual work, I'm an executive coach. And so then we could set up one-on-one time. But what we know is that access is generally the key to a lot of success for folks. Coaches are really expensive. I've had one, I still have one, and I can't imagine being 25 years old
Yeah.
trying or
For my
30.
own daughter's coach. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And paying for a coach. So it's really expensive. So we wanted to have two verticals, one where it's financially attainable for young professionals, because as I've stated, there's that trajectory. And a lot of times folks aren't getting that coaching or that individual development too much later in their career. That's too late. It's kind of like early childhood education, which is why it's so important. Statistics show that children who start in their early education, they tend to do better long term. Same thing with adults. If you're developing them early coming into the workforce, they have a greater potential off the chart. So if I don't come from a stock of CEOs and CFOs and business people, then I may be at a disadvantage from my peer, right? So that's where we're trying to help level the playing field, offer it for something that would be really attainable, a night out with friends at dinner, right? We really want to do that because we deeply care about folks taking control of their journey and not waiting for someone to control it for them.
And I'll add one thing to that, or a couple things that I'll add when Myshell talks about the young professional, that was us. So we're really passionate because we know what this could have meant for our careers in our 20s. We have the stories of how it took several years to move along. And then we have the challenges and we have the wins that once we talk to our peers, they talk about how much earlier they were able to gain access to simple things like a network. How does a 20-something-year-old outside of their own same friends in college, how do they come out, start a career, and build a network? And how do they do it in a record time? And how do you do that as a woman? How do you do that as a person of color? How do you do that as someone of different social economic backgrounds, which we know can vary, male, female, race, whatever your background is, it varies. And there is no one size fits all to having this sort of support. I have a coach as well. And to Myshell's point, we had to rate later in our careers to be able to support that level of executive coaching that we get today in our careers that spans a couple decades. But like I said, who's counting? And the other thing I'll say is think about the simple things. Sometimes as especially senior executives, we assume that it needs to be very detailed, very experienced, very high level with what we hope to bear and bring to the market. But really, some of these young folks or younger career people need things like soft skills. Yes, you got taught English in school, but how do you write an email? How do you communicate? How do you get your point across? Just the interpersonal intelligence. I know I've had a lot of head wounds from going about things before my maturity caught up to me, or before anyone said, hey, how you deliver that message would be a lot stronger if you delivered it differently, and how much that would have saved me professionally and personally.
Part of what occurs to me, just because I'm watching my own adult children, is they really struggle in their 20s to build strong networks. Now my daughter, at least in her 30s, she's starting to really value it and understand it. And it feels to me you're almost speeding up a developmental life cycle, like something that I think we all kind of naturally start to get there in our 30s. By the time you're 40, you have to be with other women and have an impact, or you're not happy. So you really understand your network is your net worth by then. But do you do anything, or is it just like exposing them and getting them in the practice of it? How do you make sure these young people really get it in their
Yeah.
bone?
I mean, that's a good question. There's a great book that I love, Atomic Habits. And coaching is really based on habit formation, being repetitious in the things that you want. You have to put it into practice, which is a coach in your profession is just like any other coach, whether it's your baseball coach, your singing coach, you practice it. And so one of the things that we absolutely, and what I do with my clients is saying, okay, hey, here's the things that you want to do. Tell me your process. And we go down this road of what am I doing to get to the goal? So not so much focusing on the goal, but more so focusing on the process. And when you have a process and you practice it consistently, you do win.
Right.
You
So you
do
break
win.
it down into pieces almost, right?
Break it down into pieces. You
Yeah.
don't take it all at one time. I mean, the classic analogy is when you are trying to change your eating habits and dieting. You don't
Right.
say, today I'm gonna stop candy, I will stop sodas. Like, you don't stop everything immediately. You tackle one thing at a time so that you really drive your motivation towards success. And with anything in life, if you don't really put it into practice, there's no way for it to be a part of your life. It's not like waking up, brushing your teeth, right? You had to practice that as a kid. Your parents would say, okay, did you brush your teeth? Morning and night, right? It was a repetition. And then once you got it, it became something that you just did automatically. So it became a very unconscious behavior, but you had to originally start very consciously and intentionally doing it.
Yeah. And I would say, especially for early career people, the things that really resonate with me is keeping it simple. Be authentic, being your authentic self. I remember as a sales executive, when I won my very first client ever in business, I was an insurance broker I was number 5 in the lineup with the CEO of a prominent organization in the Silicon Valley. And I remember her telling me why I won, which I didn't have a plan or a strategy. I just knew I knew my product. I was going to go in there and be myself. And that's all I planned for. There was no crafty, beautiful presentation. Technology wasn't quite where it is today. There's no chat GPT to get me through a meeting with the CEO. And so I will say I showed up and I was my authentic self. And she told me she was so struck in interviewing me compared to all the other professionals that have walked through the door because it wasn't rehearsed. It was authentic. She felt my passion. And she even realized as a young 20-something-year-old salesperson, she was looking back at a version of like, oh my gosh, I wish I was her when I was in my 20s, and how she, as a CEO, remembered coming in and trying to be more like the guys and trying to be something other than what she was. And she said it struck her so much. She was up all night with her husband saying she met this person that like forever changed how she thought about authenticity. And that even in her 50s, she recognized she was not being as authentic as she should and could have been, even in her leadership role. So I would say, in terms of how we get there, it's going to be in lots of storytelling. It's going to be really getting to who we are, not what your parents have lined out for you, not what you think society tells you to be, but who are you really? What makes you passionate? Really getting to that foundational stuff and then taking inventory. Who do you know today and what does that look like? Everyone has something that's valuable. We all have something to offer. And then the one thing I'll add to that is, again, early on, I discovered from a mentor at the time, which was always show up offering to give something. Don't show up with your hand out. As you try to build a network and you try to work a room and you get really comfortable being really uncomfortable, which is what I always was, both as a female and as a Black woman at that, is I'm about to be in these really uncomfortable rooms, but I have something to offer. I have something to say, even if it's literally being my authentic self. And so that's where you start, is take inventory and start with some of the most basic things, because our young people today, when you have social media, everyone is looking so polished and so perfect, and they look like they're just showing up and just making it work. That we all know that's not reality. So how do we scale that way back and make it real for them today, and go back to some of the foundational stuff that's built some of our most successful entrepreneurs that exist? It's starting with the basics.
I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm not asking for a seat at the table. My friends, this is the first generation of us. We have a huge opportunity. We have power and influence and wealth. And we can start building the tables where we get the prime seats. Today, we want to invite you to join us as investors in venture. I know no one's asked you to do it before. It might be something that seems scary or foreign, but I promise you it's not that different than investing in a mutual fund where your retirement funds are. I want you to lean in and just learn a little bit more. How about making a commitment that in the next 12 months, you can give yourself 12 months to figure it out and to take a step. I want to invite you to be part of the new table of power and influence and wealth. You're invited. I want to sit at the table with you because we're going to make big change. We're going to make the world we've been dreaming of. I have to tell you, as I listen to you, I almost feel this sigh of relief because I am 56. I think I'm older than both of you, but I grew up in an era. I don't think I could be my authentic self in the 90s, or I don't think that was really on the table. I think you had to over-index and fit in that box. We still have these corporate norms. The more women starting businesses, the more we get to have different box shapes or whatever, corporate structures that allow people to fully be themselves. But it's interesting when you think about the young people, so many of them are screaming out to be recognized for their authentic selves, whether it's they're showing up with tattoos and all the things that there's no judgment, but really saying
Yeah.
it's a recovery from being forced to be the plastic version of ourselves. And it's such a beautiful thing that what you're doing is you're combining like career goals with your visibility and your authentic self, but then the coaching, because you cannot make this change in this way without a lot of support. You were both in our Visible Impact program, and you had the one-on-one opportunities, both with the experts and with the coach. And to me, like, if you're going to try and transform your profile, your thing, you do something new, show up differently in the world, that's uncomfortable. You need to have somebody coaching you along that road. Have you had moments where you have seen you've been pushing, and all of a sudden the breakthrough happens because of the coaching?
How much time do you have, Julie? Because this could take all day.
That's what the question was about. All right.
I mean, listen, you hit it right on the head. For me, personally, I love talking about authenticity. And I remember the day that it showed up. I'm gonna tell you a story that recently happened. And I love this story because it's most recent. But what I will tell you about authenticity is that there is a range to that. I do believe that there's a range in which parts of your authenticity shows up. That's
Mhm.
number one. Number two, absolutely agree with you about the corporate uniform. I remember the day I wore a red jacket and everybody was in black and gray and blue, and I couldn't have stood out more. And in that moment, I still remember it was AIG 175 Water Street, New York, New York.
I know that building.
Yes. And I was at AIG for 19 years, and I was going to this meeting, and I was like, oh, I'm wearing a power color because I had just read something that red was a power color. I didn't have a lot of money, single mom, but I bought this red jacket. And I remember going into the meeting and people kind of looking at me like, is she in the wrong place? And I kind of strolled in, and I got to tell you, my confidence was nowhere where it is today. I mean, I think I've always been a little confident because you exude it in different spaces that you have a comfort and you know. But in this space of business, being African American woman, the first in the credit department at AIG, it still felt foreign for me, and I was learning and growing professionally. And I thought I was doing something. Red
Yeah.
is a power color.
Look at you.
And I remember someone pulling me aside and said, the best thing you can do is blend in a room.
You're like, well, that's not going to happen
I was
ever.
like, is that even possible? Do you see me? Do you see me? It's not even quite possible. But okay, duly noted. Fast forward, I was probably 3 months ago. I was with a friend, he and his husband, having dinner in San Francisco, and we were talking. And I was going on and on about we have range and how great work is going, and just really honing in on the skill of being a connector in a relation. I call myself a relationship maverick, a coaching maverick, depending on which job I'm doing. And I say, do you know how it feels when you just fully show up as yourself, whether it's in your dress, the way you talk, the things you like? And I said, do you remember the day that you came out to your family? And they looked at each other and they were like, yeah. And they just looked at me and they said, okay, we see you, we hear you. And I had no other analogy to give to them other than I know what that meant to really live fully who they are and openly. And that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Really, truly showing up as my shell and knowing that my job isn't the gift, right? My gifts of knowing who I am, self-awareness, the transformation, that is the gift that I have to give to other people. And that's how I know I should be doing coaching.
You give other people permission,
Yes.
light to shine like yours is shining. I just think it's so interesting. It's so right on time to have we have range today, because I wonder if you could have done it 20 years ago, even in the 2000s. I mean, women finally, just as women and Black women, we finally have a critical mass of us at work and in the world. And I kind of look at the women who are 10, 20 years older than me, and some of them are pretty harsh. They say things like, you just got to blend in, don't wear braids. Whatever you do, make sure the colors are muted. And whatever it is, that thing, that advice that people gave to younger women, probably well-meaning, probably not
Yeah,
necessarily meaning.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
all those micro moments where you're just like, okay, I'm getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
And so you can't anymore. Your our worlds are so big. I can't even contort and bend and do this anymore. I mean, I have stories about when I first wore my hair natural, when I first wore braids. Those are things that women today older than me still
Yeah.
grapple with. I have a client that still really wants to wear her hair natural. I mean, if anybody understood the level of work that it takes for us to maintain that, it's like until you are in anyone's shoes, no matter who it is, you don't know what their walk is. So I try never to have judgment. When people say it's hard for me, I bet it is because I have never sat in your shoes, right? No matter what you look like. But especially, I know what it is to be a Black woman. And I would love to hear what Ivoree, she
yeah.
has, we've talked about this often. So,
Yeah, I just want to add and highlight how women lead and the contribution that you made materially. 2023 was a huge year for me in terms of what Myshell was describing. And what she said back to me is, I hear you, Ivory. You are resting in your power. And it was kind of this recognition of like acceptance. I am who I am. I am who my creator designed me to be. I love who I am. I love what I bring to the table. I love all of my experiences. I love the challenges I've had. I love the mistakes I've made. Why? Because I've only learned the most during those mistakes. And in taking the branding program with How Women Lead, I spent months with some of the most dynamic women who I envy. I mean, you're talking a former FBI, representative. You're talking entrepreneurs who've been working with Silicon Valley execs for 20 plus years. And I was in awe of all of these women as I watched them be in awe of me. And so it was very surreal to have us all sort of supporting each other and really breaking down, caring about our work and how we're trying to use our past experiences and our past career to find purpose. And your program really helped from a branding perspective pull that out because it made us answer the question, who are we?
Yeah.
Who is Ivoree Inc?
Yeah.
What does she wants to be? What does she want to, just the big overarching is what contributions does she want to make in the world? And really forcing us to refine that and saying we are enough and we have enough experiences to use that in practice right now. We can get started today. And it really came, I believe one of the speakers you have, Angela White, very prominent speaker who was helping us sort of define what makes up being an expert. And she just mentioned that how I think the stat was like 90+% of those who control the media space are men, and oftentimes less qualified, oftentimes with only 8% of what some of these women's experiences were and are, and how it's just because us women aren't believing that we've arrived yet. Us women think we still have more work to do. And but for your program, I might have spent another 20 years trying to decide when I have enough pedigree before I dare apply to do an op-ed, before I dare apply to sit on any more panels as a subject matter expert. I mean, I still felt up into 2023 that I was feeling nervous of even my congressional testimony in 2020. 3 years later, I was still afraid for someone to go look that up and think I didn't have anything of value to say, because who am I to sit there in a room and tell someone I'm an expert on a subject matter? And so that program just really cleared the air and really helped us take off all of those insecurities and those self-judgments that oftentimes women impress upon ourselves. And that was my coming out year, is what I would say, picking back off of what my
Full
was her
circle.
story.
Full circle. And let me just tell you, Julie, as long as she had me in her network, it wouldn't have taken a few more years. But I do remember the day we had that conversation. And I was like, I've been sitting, waiting, I've been watching, I've been listening, because it's not for me to tell her, you need to say this, you need to do this. That's what transformation is. When you transform, you have a self-awareness, you have a self-discovery. And my dad says this all the time, everybody has their journey. And he's right. Everyone has their journey, and it is up to us to be supportive, not judge, and say, stop judging yourself. That's the first thing I generally say to clients is stop judging yourself, because it's all these things in our heads that we say to ourselves that limit us. And Ivoree did it all on her own. I was just sitting there, just witnessing the journey. I mean, all on her own with How Women Lead, like everybody around her, but just in this supportive way that, look how she expressed that. I got chills.
I know. Big time. All right. I'm just going to say can I give you some observations, Myshell? You
Yes.
just spoke like a true executive coach. I have an executive coach training. Like the whole point is that it's inside you, and the person that's your coach is helping you get it out. So it was all inside her, but someone had to give her the mirror and coach her along the way with those stories. And Ivoree, like every one of us got it. Honestly, there's a reason why you filtered yourself. There's a reason. If society did that to us, it is not, you weren't born that way. You were born more like you are today. Society just said, stop wearing red, shrink, fit in, don't have a voice. And I just wish, haven't you guys seen those little TikToks where they have like the little girl in the mirror and she's like, I am beautiful. I feel like what you just did is what we should all do every day. And I'm going to listen to this over and over and be like, I love myself and the contribution I'm bringing to this world. That, to me, if anybody is on this journey and wants to get there, like that's what you're showing, what it looks like when you get through that journey. Because 99.9% of the women can't say that, what you just said in that way. It takes such a long time for all of us to undo all that stuff that we get naturally. But with you as a shining light and as a role model, as an example, my daughter and all the other women get to see that. I'm getting weepy, but I'd love to hear, just, was there a day, Myshell, when you realized your purpose? When did you figure that out? When did it just come pouring out of you?
I have to take a breath because I love this conversation for many reasons. And I will tell you, one of the biggest reasons is seeing my dear friend and business partner hone in on her power. We decided some time ago, and we haven't even developed our podcast yet, that is our first podcast of sitting in your power. And I remember really early, and I remember as it ticked on, I bought my first house at 25 in Queens. And I remember being a single mom and moving out of my apartment in New Brunswick. I had a friend who had just bought a house. And I said, hey, can I live with you for 6 months? I want to save up money because I need to buy a house. I don't want to live in a crappy place in New York. I had just started working at AIG in 2000, and everything that I saw was really expensive. And she's like, yeah. So my daughter and I, we lived in her house. I mean, she had a beautiful house, but we had a bedroom. And I remember in that moment humbling myself to live in a bedroom to save money for a greater purpose, the long term. And what I know about, and I had this conversation this weekend with someone about sacrifice and the work of nonprofit and people in nonprofit, the sacrifice that they make for their communities and to better others because of lack of policy, that's a whole nother story, is what we have to do for ourselves if you really want something. And that sacrifice of 6 months of me living in a friend's house in a bedroom with my daughter, I didn't feel low. I felt very high, actually. I felt very empowered. I felt that I was making a financial decision that would set me up for wealth later. At the time, I wasn't thinking that. At the time, I was like, well, I grew up, we always lived in the place we owned. This is what you're supposed to do. And so that's what I did. And then when I bought the house, everybody was so surprised. They're like, how did you do that? I was like,
25-year-old single mother. I mean,
yeah,
that is not usually what we think is the next step. Have a baby.
Yeah, I just save money. I
Uh-huh.
sacrifice. And that is the thing that I will tell you that for me, I think is the single most thing that I have done in my personal life and professionally is sacrifice the now for later. I didn't even have that theme in my head until I was having a conversation with someone last week about sacrifice and all of these nonprofits and why aren't we so much further along and why does it take so much to get someone to donate $5 and things like that. I was like, it's a sacrifice of looking outside of ourselves to look at others. And so for me, when I was 25, and then when I sold that place at 31, because I was going to lose it, because I had student loan, bought a new car, all these things. And I said, wait a minute, I have an asset. I'm a finance man. I know what to do. Sell this. I made double what I paid for. I was able to put money in the bank, buy another place that I'm currently actually putting on the market. I bought it in 2006. And since that time, I've bought many properties, but that's what empowered. That's when I realized my purpose of giving myself permission to curate the life that I want. That is real empowerment, making decisions for yourself and not feeling like, well, what if? You just go for it, because The power of now is really, really real. You can't control the outcome. I can only control what I can control now. Not having real expectations of things. I had to learn that though. And so now I walk through life not with real strong expectations. I just take what the universe gives me. And I got to tell you, every time I do that, it works. I
Hmm.
remember meeting Ivoree and her walking up to me. I took her, I said, hey, come to dinner with us. I didn't know her. And that is how our friendship, our businessship, our partnership started. And that's how it continues to thrive today.
Oh, my goodness, you two are a dynamic duo. Anyone who can sign up for this program is going to have a big win. And the fact that you're doing this for people in the social sector and the nonprofit world is such a gift, because the weight that they have on their shoulders, the scarcity of resources, and the absolute requirement in our society for them to thrive, it demands this kind of an infusion of love and support. Thank you both for everything that you're doing. How can people find you? How can people sign up?
Yeah, so we're both on LinkedIn, and as Myshell said, we are just launching. So this came together in 23. Again, shout out to How Women Lead for the branding focus and leading and helping aiding me to this moment. But we're both on LinkedIn. You can find me under Ivoree Jordan or Myshell Gresham, and we have a page. We have a LinkedIn page as well. We have Range, and we'll be launching here shortly. Or we have Range website coupled with all the other activities we plan to do, and including media. The goal is to get the word out. Of course, we want purpose. We want to impact others. I don't believe there's anyone, especially if you're earlier career, who can't use some level of support and guidance along the way. And yeah, so find us in any of those places, and we are happy to connect and have a conversation, is usually where it starts.
You give me hope, both of you. Thank you so much. I think anybody who just experienced this conversation would understand the transformative power of being with both of you and the perspective that you're bringing to this. My goodness, you're both powerful. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.